Senator Mansavinos.
Thank you, Madam President. I ask that House Bill number 104 be read in by title only and brought before the Senate for consideration.
Mr. Reading Clerk, kindly read in House Bill 104, title only.
House Bill number 104 with House Amendment 1, sponsored by Representative Bush, Representative Dorsey Walker, Senator Mansavinos, and Walsh, and others. An act to amend Title 29 of the Delaware Code relating to land use planning. Madam President, that concludes the reading of House Bill number 104 with House Amendment 1 by title only.
House Bill 104 with the Senate, Senator Mansavinos.
Thank you, Madam President. This bill deals with the Preliminary Land Use Service, or PLUS process, which was created more than 20 years ago to provide developers with an early coordinated review of projects from state agencies. That was at a time before state strategy levels were created and before many comprehensive plans were in place, and at a time when developers are often surprised at very late stages in projects by requirements of state agencies. Currently, any project over 50,000 square feet must go through the PLUS process, and there are some exceptions based on local requirements. And PLUS was never designed, and it is not a permitting or approval step for projects, and is designed for developers to receive feedback on their proposed projects. All projects must still go through all applicable local and state agency permitting process that have public notice and public input requirements. Currently, that's how it exists currently, and will continue to exist should House Bill 104 pass. Some projects, so basically what House Bill 104 does, it offers a limited exemption from the PLUS process for a select set of projects. These projects would have to be in state strategies level 1 or 2, and I'm going to take a moment to just read what those, the description in the Delaware strategies for state policies is, so we all understand what an investment level 1 is. Investment level 1 areas are often municipalities, towns, or urban and urbanizing places in counties. Density is generally higher than in surrounding areas. There are a variety of transportation opportunities available. Buildings may have mixed uses, such as businesses on the first floor and apartments above. Level 2 is defined as this investment level has many diverse characteristics. Level 2 areas can be composed of less developed areas within municipalities, rapidly growing areas in the counties that have or will have public water and wastewater services and utilities, areas that are generally adjacent to or near investment level 1 areas. So basically, these are the areas that are designed for growth by the state, designated for growth by the state for growth. Secondly, any project that's going to receive this exemption from the PLUS review process must create jobs. Therefore, it does not include any housing developments. Third, any project that's in question must be consistent with the area's zoning and comprehensive plan designation. Therefore, any project that proposes to change the planned use of a property, for example, from agricultural to residential or commercial, or from residential to commercial, would not be exempted from PLUS by House Bill 104. House Bill 104 also would not exempt projects in areas where the local governments require a PLUS review, either by ordinance or policy, as part of its land use process. The PLUS exemption in House Bill 104 would not apply in those areas unless the local government proactively makes a change to allow exemptions as well. So basically, based on these parameters, a small minority of projects that currently go through PLUS would have the option to be exempted under House Bill 104. And again, any developer that has a project that could be exempted under House Bill 104 that believes the PLUS process would provide helpful feedback from state agencies can still opt to go through the PLUS process. So in summary, the impact of the proposed changes under House Bill 104 is, number one, makes it optional for projects in specified, targeted, and approved growth areas. Secondly, it allows local jurisdictions can still require the PLUS process based on their existing requirements. Rezonings not compliant with the comprehensive plan must still go to PLUS, and it does not, and let me emphasize, does not eliminate or change any regulation or environmental requirements. So that basically is what House Bill 104 as amended does. Any comments or questions from my colleagues?
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Madam President. I have some comments to make. I am not in favor of this bill. I am really, really not in favor of this bill, and I want to tell you why. We say that we want to encourage public comment, and in particular, public comment that shows familiarity and knowledge of the subject matter. When it comes to subjects that capture the heart and intense interest of the public, you can't find many that are more heated and more complicated than land use. People want to be involved in the land use decisions that are made for development that is near them. They also find out very quickly that it's an incredibly difficult process to figure out. For years, the PLUS process has been the public's first glance at a proposed development. But it provides more than just a glance. It provides a comprehensive initial review of the project and any concerns from the reviewing agency. The PLUS review results in a PLUS report that's a public document that can be accessed online anytime from the Office of State Planning and Coordination's website. This bill eliminates the PLUS review and the resulting report for certain development projects, and it casts a net much wider than the language of the bill would lead you to believe. It effectively blinds the public on these projects. It is not okay somehow because these are just in a level 1 and a level 2 area. Most of our small towns in Kent and Sussex, and for miles outside of these towns, not just the incorporated area, but miles outside of these towns are level 1 and level 2. And nearly the entire length of Route 1 and Route 13 in Kent is in a level 1 and level 2. And it's also not okay that this bill applies only to projects creating full-time jobs because there's no definition of what that means and how many jobs meet the threshold. Does a residential golf community qualify? Does a golf house community with a clubhouse? Most golf course communities employ at least a few people to manage the carts, the equipment, and the clubhouse. We've all been told that this doesn't apply to residential development, but who believes that a golf course community is something other than residential development? And how about an apartment complex with a leasing office? Are there full-time jobs there? Of course there is. And is that an economic development project under this bill? I believe it would be. And what about a mixed-use residential commercial development plan? These are very common, and they proceed through the approval process as a single plan. Is the whole plan exempt from PLUS under this bill, or are we just going to tease out the commercial portion? This bill doesn't say. So let's talk about one of those plans. I have the PLUS report here from a mixed-use plan right here. Did not require a zoning, and it was in a level 2. So this is one of the plans that we'd be talking about. It's Hearthstone 2. There were 1,138 residential units and 24,000 square feet of commercial on 120 acres, level 2. Not a rezoning. So this PLUS report would not be generated under this bill. So let's take a look at some of the things that are in the PLUS report, because one of the things we've also heard, that the PLUS reports are just cut and paste. That these are just cut and paste. You're getting no individual information about these projects from the PLUS report. So let's see what one has to say. And the one I was talking about was just Hearthstone. So here we have Division of Historic and Cultural Affairs. They write, there may have been an early 20th century building within the parcel near its southern edge, and there may be archaeological resources associated with the building. There's also an area of medium potential for prehistoric archaeological sites. We would appreciate an opportunity to check the area for archaeological sites and perhaps learn something about their location prior to any ground disturbing activities. They mention consideration should be given to moving or reducing the number of lots within the wooded area along the northern portion of the parcel. First of all, it's doubtful that all the proposed stormwater management ponds scattered throughout the subdivision are necessary for flood control. A reduction in a number of the ponds might allow these areas to be used for lots that are taken out of the wooded area. Next, consideration should be given to removing or reducing the number of lots. DNREC recommends that vegetated buffers of no less than 100 feet be employed around the wetlands and water bodies, particularly because ground disturbance will occur within 100 feet of the wetlands project, of the wetlands complex. What happens with these comments? Those comments are not boilerplate, and there's 17 pages of them associated with this project that would qualify under this bill to no longer have to go through plus. What happens with this? People that want to be involved in the development process and they want to be educated on what the issues are will go to the plus reports, the single place that you can find them on the Office of State Planning Coordination's website. They'll pull these reports, they'll look through here and look at areas where they can provide supporting testimony to the things that some of these agencies want to do. You heard DENREC recommend a 100-foot buffer from a particular wetland area. Unless the local jurisdiction's code actually says 100 feet, and most of them do not, it's likely that you're not going to get what DENREC is saying, what DENREC is asking for. And they may not even ask for the archaeological visit as well, because they don't have to. The local jurisdiction doesn't have to. It's when the people who are involved nearby want to get involved in that project, they pull this report, then they can come and offer those comments to the planning and zoning board, to the town council. And that's where the planning, zoning boards and the town council can say, well, you know what? I think maybe we can give that some consideration, and maybe we'll look into widening the buffer or moving the lines from the lot lines from out of the wooded area. That's how the public gives knowledgeable and specific information on development projects within their district. So this bill might not have been designed to apply to residential development, and you've heard the sponsor say that it's not supposed to. But it will be, because it creates a great big loophole. All you have to do to get your residential project exempt from plus is to include a commercial pad or bring in a job component, like a clubhouse, a leasing office, a gym, and there you go. No plus process. And it's of no comfort or practical reality to say that this information is already available on the county or municipality's website, because it really isn't practically available. All new development projects, regardless of where they're located, are on the plus website. It's one stop, one place to look. Otherwise, you have to know, as a volunteer, interested community member, where do I find information on this project? Is it in the municipalities on the website? Is it on the county's website? And then you have to go and try to get into that website and try to find those specific documents, if you can, if they're on the website. And then when you find them, maybe you've got one from DENREC, you've got one from Delta, you've got one from Historic Repairs. You've got to look through hundreds of pages of those to pull out something that might be of importance, other than having this one particular document. So it really isn't practically available. It isn't a realistic expectation of the public in order to say that they should be informed and they're able to have knowledge on this project. So how did the bill come about? A consultant was hired to look at the development process in our state, a process which in some cases takes 18 to 24 months to complete. Their belief was that removing the plus review would shave off about 2 months. And in their review, they had no idea that there was any public dependency on this information, but they were wrong. Plus isn't the problem. I've spoken to many developers about the pace of development projects, and they believe plus is an annoyance because it costs a couple of months, but it's not the real problem. That's not where the real time is spent in the development process. The real time is spent waiting in line to get on a local jurisdiction's agenda, their planning and zoning agenda, their town council agenda, which can take months. And it's spent in the back and forth between the agencies and the engineers during the plan review process when there are changes that are needed to the different plans. It's also spent on the underlying conditions in the contract, sometime between the developer and the owner of the property. There are all sorts of reasons why development projects take a long time to get through the process, but plus is not one of those big reasons. Look at Middletown. Everyone agrees that Middletown is a very speedy place to get development approval. In fact, it's often held up as a shining example of how to do things right. Well, projects in Middletown go through plus. Middletown knows that speeding up the development process is based on having property where the water, sewer, electric are already there or planned for. There's a transportation improvement district in place so that everybody knows what roadway projects are going to be necessary and how much they're going to pay for them. Those are some of the underlying big reasons why development projects can move quickly through an approval process. It's not Plus. Plus isn't the problem. It's the scapegoat here, and this bill is going to take away from the public a valuable tool, enabling them to meaningfully participate in the development process around them. And there also hasn't been any consideration into whether there are other ways to keep the Plus process intact while still reducing this 2-month review time, like by running Plus review at the same time as waiting in line to be heard in the local jurisdiction, or finding another way to end up with a single report that's accessible to the public early enough in the development process to be meaningful. This is a terrible bill. It removes the ability for educated, meaningful public comment. I won't be supporting it, and I urge my colleagues to do the same. Our constituents deserve better.
Okay, Senator Manzavinos.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to ask for a privilege of the floor for David Edgell.
Personal privilege granted. Afternoon, sir. You know the drill. Title and name, please.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Edgell. I'm the Director of the Office of State Planning Coordination. Our office administers the Plus process, and I'm here to answer any questions you have. Senator Manzavinos.
Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Manzavinos.
To the witness, just I believe you've certainly heard Senator Hansen's comments. I would just like some clarification. I think on the mixed use question, if you can discuss that a little bit.
Yeah, I think just to clarify the point regarding mixed use and residential developments being a part of this bill or not a part of this bill, the bill amends a section of the code that relates to the non-residential projects, so 50,000 square feet or more of non-residential projects. The residential component of 50 units or more is in another section of the bill, or another section of the statute, so that in your examples that you pulled from the Plus reports, you know, if those projects had more than 50 residential units, they would have had to go through Plus regardless of the commercial component. There might be a case where there's 49 residential units and 50,100 square feet of non-residential that might be exempted, but that would be a kind of a rare case. So I just wanted to clarify that to your question.
Senator Manzavinos, more questions?
Thank you, Madam President. If there are no other questions of the witness, I ask the witness be excused.
Witness is excused.
Right, thank
Senator
you.
Manzavinos. Senator Walsh, then Senator Huxtable.
Thank you, Madam President. And thank you, Senator Hansen, for your testimony. I know you made mention in your testimony that project that you were talking about was 24,000 square feet, so that would be exempt from this piece of legislation, just so we're clear. And I'd also like to say this is about Delaware's reputation. If we don't pass this bill, we've been working on Ready in 6 for a couple years now. With the Delaware Prosperity Partnership. And businesses, will they come here? No. Right? They want projects that are shovel ready. Right? There's projects already. There's a couple projects that they walked away. There's a couple of businesses that have walked away from the projects because we don't have shovel ready projects. And if we continue down that path, we will just have houses and golf courses. And if that's what you want, then vote no. But we need projects that are shovel ready. We need projects that will bring sustainable jobs here to the state of Delaware. And this is a start. This is a start. This is not circumventing any environmental laws or anything like that. This is about the reputation. This is about Delaware's reputation. And if we don't move in the right direction, like I said, we will just have residential. We'll have golf courses. I don't know if we'll have golf courses because a lot of them are closing, but this is something that is much needed. There's some other legislation that will follow this. I know we ran House Bill 102 earlier, which enhanced the temporary construction entrance permits. So this is something that is much needed, and I highly support this piece of legislation, and I would hope my colleagues would support it as well. Thank you.
Okay, we will go to Senator Huxtable, then Senator Hucker, then Senator Pettyjohn. Senator Huxtable.
Thank you. My colleague, Senator Hansen, illustrated a lot of the points, and I support her position and will be voting no for this, because it's taking what the public has now relied on to go into these planning and zoning meetings, to have information, to be an educated citizenry. And that, while it might not have been the purpose of the original bill with plus, that is the outcome that we have today. And so I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Senator Hucker?
Thank you, Madam President. I want to confirm what Senator Welsh has just talked about. I've been over a year and a half trying to get a piece of property shovel ready. Still do not, and I've had one of my future tenants just back out.
Senator Pettyjohn?
Thank you, Madam President. Rise in support of this legislation. You know, in some of our travels, both personally and professionally, we go to different areas of the country where things are happening. A couple weekends ago, we visited friends that moved to Charleston, South Carolina, and the amount of building there is tremendous. I'm not just talking about, you know, homes, golf courses, things like that. Manufacturing, people building things again, like we used to do here in Delaware when we built cars. This plus process, I think, was very well intentioned. I think it was Governor Minner in the Livable Delaware plan that started this. And as somebody who sat on a local board, on town council in Georgetown, yeah, you know, there were things that the town was doing to slow down the processes, but we fixed those. One of the things that, from a local control standpoint, we didn't appreciate was Plus coming in and saying what we should and shouldn't do. Those are decisions for the local municipalities, for the counties, for the towns, for the cities. So the more barriers that we can remove in order to start building things that our constituents are demanding, hospitals, whether it's a smaller medical facility, all sorts of things, retail, commercial, things that are bringing jobs into Delaware, I think is the better. You know, we need to start looking top to bottom in this whole Ready to Six at where these stumbling blocks are. This is one of them. This isn't going to be the end-all, be-all and going to fix all the problems. There are other areas, whether it be agencies and regulatory reform. We have to start taking a look at this because Delaware has become non-competitive. When people are looking to build something to bring jobs to an area, we're located in a great place. We're located in a perfect place geographically. That's why we're the Diamond State. But we've made it so difficult to bring those jobs, to bring those industries, to bring that manufacturing to Delaware, that they overlook us now. They go to neighboring states. They go south. We need to be looking at things to speed the processes up and bypassing Plus for this narrowly tailored segment of development, I think is one step. But it's one step that we have to continue moving this ball forward so that we can be competitive, we become competitive again and a leader in the region. Thank you.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, the plus process, what the proponents will tell you, shaves off about 2 months out of an 18 to 24-month process. We recently did another bill having to do with the ability of a developer being able to start construction in an entrance area before getting the final approvals from DelDOT, and that was going to shave them about 6 to 8 months off the project. So it was a meaningful change to that timeline with really nobody getting hurt. The only risk in that instance was the developer might choose to move forward without having the final approval from DelDOT. So it was a risk that they were going to take. They were going to have to decide to take. Here we have 2 months at most being shaved off a process, and the counterbalance of that is public review, public input, the ability for citizens to be involved in the development projects near them. That's the counterbalance here. And it's too heavy. The juice isn't worth the squeeze here. And like I said, with Middletown goes through plus. There's probably not a soul in this building that thinks that Middletown isn't the stellar model of how to do development. You can get a project started and done there. I think it is within 6 months. It's held up as the model for how to do it. They use plus. Plus isn't the problem. Plus isn't the problem. There are deeper problems revolving about how we do development, how we get an area ready to actually extend development in places where the infrastructure's in place, where we've got the roads that are coming in, where we have water, sewer, electric. Those are the ways to move development forward, actual meaningful ways. We could work with the agencies on the review process. How long should it reasonably take to get through the review process? There are all sorts of things that we can do, but cutting the plus process out of this is cutting the legs out from under the public with this. And it's just not worth 2 months. It's just not.
Senator Sturgeon?
Thank you, Madam President. A question for the sponsor, if I may.
Yes, Senator Mansavinos. Go ahead, Senator
Thank
Sturgeon.
you. Senator Mansavinos, as I'm listening to the debate, obviously I very much respect my colleague, Senator Hansen, and her passion for this. So I'm wondering what opportunities for public input will remain if this bill passes.
Senator Mansavinos.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, these are very specific types of projects that would go through that. And again, it requires when projects under 50,000 square feet do not have to go through that, so there's no plus process for those smaller developments. But currently, again, counties are posting information on their websites. A lot of times the county or the municipality has the most current information because at the time when an initial project is submitted, by the time it gets to the actual regulatory or municipal review, the project has changed. So what was initially under plus may no longer apply. So the municipality that ultimately has the final say once all environmental and other regulatory matters have been addressed, that's where, again, the information is available and the public can offer their comments, during that approval process.
Madam President.
Senator Sturgeon.
Okay, I heard a lot of words, and I appreciate you trying to answer the question. Let me see if I can make it more simple for my understanding. Will there still be an opportunity for public input at some point in the process for the types of projects that this bill touches upon if this bill passes?
Yes.
Yes or no? Yes. Okay. That helps. Thank you very much.
Okay, Senator Buxton.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to the sponsor for bringing this forward and to Senator Hansen for articulating concerns on the floor. It's interesting. This is actually what it looks like when we have some discourse, especially on that side. So I welcome it. It's also not lost on me that we're very concerned about the public input when it's away from this body, but not here. That's just my comment. But let me speak as somebody who was a county commissioner for 16 years, a land use chair for all of those, somebody who spent countless nights in public hearings or in community meetings dealing with this very concern. In fact, in 2018, after going through years of the process, we passed or tried to pass some ordinances that dealt specifically to the plus process, among other things, because it was where we are today, a part of trying to be ready faster. And we recognized that the plus process, as good as it looks on paper, isn't necessary to be presented at the time that it is. I argued that even for some of the larger residential. but now we're talking about specifically economic development. So I'm just going to tell you from my experience, from the experience of the former county administrator, who was also a former planning director, who very articulately said to me in a text why he would support it, this measure. He said, because it's a good idea. That's all, as someone who's been in the game long enough to know. So where am I going with this as I reach out to maybe a couple of those concerns? The public process, at least at the county level, for the one that I represented, involves not only an introduction by the applicant to the county, right? But then also an introduction on an agenda, a public posting on site, as well as in virtual, paper, or whatever. Also, certified notifications to the folks who are going to be impacted in that area. It also is going to go through 2 very public hearings, one of them a public hearing, one of them a public vote for the Planning Commission, before it then finds its way to a county, or rather a levy court meeting, for another public hearing. That's a long time. That's a lot of time for folks to effectively get their points across. And believe me, they do. They have kept us there for nights on end, and rightfully so. They have tabled legislation that wasn't ready because of their position and their concerns. Their voices were heard. That's the important thing that we're getting at. Their voices were heard. Their concerns were allowed to be raised based on the public information, and they were able to convey their concerns to the commissioners. The commissioners were able to then decide in front of the public whether they were going to stop the process, circle back, correct things, or move forward. But none of it happens in the cover of darkness or silence, none of it. So anyway, what am I up for? It's because I have experience in this. What am I speaking to? I'm speaking to the process. It's long, it's process, it's deliberative. The people do have a voice and an option. They're right in front of you. There is no 1-minute conversation, folks. None. Been there till 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm not exaggerating. So their voices are heard. So I support this, not because it's some major change and shift that's going to pour economic development into the counties, but because it's a very small piece of a bigger puzzle called Ready in 6. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Huxtable?
Yes, I think we're mixing 2 components. There's public input, and I believe we agree that there is that public input, but it's a matter of public education, and that's what the PLUS process has been providing people. So it's not necessarily that they have an opportunity to provide comments at the PLUS meetings. It's a matter that they have education so they can actually go to your levy court meetings or the Sussex County Council or the jurisdictions with legitimate information from legitimate sources that they know and trust. Thank you.
Madam President.
Senator Buxton?
It's a fair point, but I need to articulate correctly. The PLUS process, or the agencies and their abilities to weigh in, doesn't disappear. It does not. And it doesn't show up out of nowhere the night of a levy court meeting, similar to what happens here when a committee happens and then we have a vote. It is a lengthy process with ample amounts of time for the community to reach out to folks, to study and to research. There just is. So I acknowledge your concerns, but we're not even talking about 300 homes. We're talking about very specific economic development projects in very specific areas of the county that the state has considered receptive to this. We need to be more friendly. And again, this is a small part of a bigger puzzle that Ready in 6 would do. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Hansen?
Thank you, Madam President. I've been involved in land use for many decades as well. And you're right, it's a long process. But it is exponentially more difficult to make changes to development plans Once you get started in that process and you are in front of planning and zoning, and then you're in front of the final body, the final approval body, it gets more and more difficult to make changes the further along in that process you go. That's why people that want to be involved in the development process know to get in and figure things out early so that you can meet with the developer, you can meet with your council and local representatives to talk about the things that concern you. You can meet at a time when changes to the plan are much easier to make. That's the idea behind this. But you can't do that if we're taking away the tools from them, which is the knowledge of things that the experts are bringing forth. Yes, DENREC's going to continue to make comments on plans, as is DelDOT, as is the fire marshal, and you can go and you can pick those out if you happen to know that. But here we have an instance where all those groups are coming together early in the process. A single report is written. They go through a list of things that are not boilerplate necessarily. Generally, many of those things are not. And it gives people the ability to say, yeah, we agree with the comments made by the Historic Preservation Group. We would like to see, to take a look to see if there's any archaeological resources over there. It gives the ability for people to be a lot more involved in a project in a meaningful way early on. This bill doesn't take away any public comment ability. It doesn't take away and change any land use and planning and zoning hearings or public notice or public comment. But what it does take away is the knowledge, the ammunition that a knowledgeable citizenry should have when they start talking about these projects and want to be able to meet with the developers of projects that are around them. You're taking the tools away from them. You're saying, yeah, you can still talk. We've got plenty of ways for you to still talk and participate in this process. You're just not going to have the tools and the knowledge to give a lot of reasonable comment.
Senator Pettyjohn did you still want to do something, or no, you were just doing the count? Senator Buxton?
Acknowledging my third time up, my last.
I am counting. You all think I'm not. I'm like a good referee, umpire, whatever you want me to be.
The plus process, a couple things. So I'm going to use the number 30. There's like 30 folks that have a bite at that apple. It's quite a bit. None of them get dismissed. They all still continue to have that process. It's just a matter of timing. We mentioned 2 months being small. You also mentioned, Senator Hansen, 8 months. When you combine the 8 months with a 2 month, you're getting closer to a year. And again, it's a part of the process of speeding up opportunity, economic development. Maybe if it was just 2 months, maybe it wouldn't be that big a deal. I can assure you this, the biggest impediment to applications is the traffic. TIDs are important. Unfortunately, we don't have them throughout the states right now, right? So what we have is what we can work with. An entrance expedited or temporary approvals matters. That's a small part of the process. Eliminating plus, rather, or at least eliminating that 2 month step, if that's what you're going to call it, is a part of the process. I can assure you this. I have been a part of numerous meetings where the public did completely seize the day and win the moment. Because as a county commissioner connected to the people in that county, you feel their pain. You better listen to them. We table numerous applications, much to the dismay of the applicant, and have them circle back and work out the challenges. In fact, we did it so much that it became commonplace for applications to come into the government and say, yes, we already held our public meeting, even though it wasn't required. So again, I'll get back to, if the goal is to protect the citizens, the ones that you and I represent, I can assure you the county commissioners, the council that are close to them, they want to do that. They're going to make sure that, and the information available to them in advance of votes, and I mean well advance of votes, will still be there in this very small section of Ready and Sixth. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Senator Townsend.
Thank you, Madam President. It was a few weeks ago, I had a sense that I would feel the way I feel right now about this bill. And I kind of thought it'd be this moment. So I kindly asked Senator Hansen to jump on I think a Friday afternoon Zoom it might have been. It might have been Friday afternoon. And she did it. And I asked the proponents of the legislation to jump on the call with us, and they did it. And I kind of sat there for about an hour maybe more and heard them discuss and debate kind of very much the way we are doing right now. And that actually goes to Senator Gay's point when she talked about Senator Huxtable's efforts on Senate Bill 6. You know, contrary to what some colleagues in this chamber have written about in the newspaper recently, there's a whole lot of public input and deliberation that goes on that doesn't necessarily happen right on the floor here. And that happened very much to Senator Hansen's credit and the bill's proponents' credit. So 4 weeks ago or so, whenever it was, I finished that Friday afternoon meeting, and I thought, you know, I just don't know. I see both sides of this, and there are merits on both sides of this. I felt that way a few weeks ago. I feel that way now, and I could not be more. You know, I just respect Senator Hansen's read on so many issues so much, but I also understand where this effort's coming from. You know, I think we've had a colleague here who earlier today and several times recently have kind of characterized what we do here as like putting us in a box or something, which, you know, if you don't want to be in the box, and don't run for office. This is the box. And, you know, maybe on very rare occasions one goes not voting, or we used to have a colleague who used to go not voting very frequently a bunch of years ago. And that ultimately, I don't think that's the best thing to do with too much frequency. But there are times when you vote one way. You vote yes or you vote no, but you're not 100% no, or you're not 100% yes. You're somewhere in the middle. And sometimes it's like a razor-thin margin of where you are. And, you know, I guess I had hoped kind of personally to figure out where I'd be a few weeks ago, or, you know, reflect on that, and a few days ago have a sense of it. But I, you know, kind of rolled in today and knew that we'd have testimony and knew we'd have pros and cons and all that, and I just think very compelling statements about why people would vote yes or why people would vote no. I guess I just want to note that there had been people who had referenced the possibility of an amendment, and for me that would have made it a little more comfortable, primarily the issue of whether or not these projects are going to be entirely within a certain zone or predominantly within a zone and not just partially within a zone. I also find it extremely fascinating. Senator Hansen and Senator Huxtable both talked about, you know, how this process has morphed perhaps over time to mean certain things in certain segments of the public, even if it wasn't the original intent. Or in terms of consultants' work, maybe if they don't even understand necessarily the full scope of how this rolls out in Delaware and how important it is to certain communities. I guess what I'll just say that I'm concerned that this could end up occurring in ways that the public looks at and says, well, you know what, that surely was not the intent of this, and so why was this supported if it wasn't, you know, airtight? And I guess I'm concerned. I think I heard recently, even today, frankly, in certain ways, implicitly, I think I heard that things can morph again. That if this bill passes, things can morph again where the public develops various procedures and protocols, sometimes facilitated by absolutely intelligent and informed members of the citizenry, not elected officials, not local government officials, but people who are plugged in and know when information is posted and when it will be posted, and there could be a whole other evolution of public access to documents that are out there. And I wanted to say, I don't want to call a witness to ask the question, but to the extent that key entities weigh in on development plans on a going basis, if those documents aren't public record, you know, then I would certainly support legislation to make sure that anything like that is public record, even if for some reason there's a change in the process now and for some period of time people are confused about that or it's not posted properly or whatever. Because I get the idea that these reports are meant to assemble key information or information that some people certainly find to be key in a very, you know, go get it, it's right there type of place. And if we pass this bill, it's not entirely clear the ecosystem we're going to be in with regard to people having access to that information. I have faith that there will be ways it can morph again in a way that's beneficial to the public. I do have concern about how long that will take or whether we could have smoothed it over more quickly.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, at least we didn't have the power go out. Some of you have been here when the power went out and things have fallen and leaked. So That hasn't happened yet.
Madam President, I will say that I was going to try to time it, but I expected Senator Buxton to go on more than he did, so that was supposed to come like right at the beginning. So I think that there's mixed views among people who are voting yes and among people who are voting no, and that happens not infrequently on tough issues. I just think it's important for us to see how a process unfolds, to see as we move forward whether or not there are additional changes that can be made to facilitate the availability of public information, the ability to digest reports that are coming out, and to make sure that there isn't some kind of like loophole in here, intentional or unintentional, that it really is narrowed to certain kinds of projects and really is focused predominantly on certain areas of Delaware where there's merit to trying to facilitate economic development. I don't know if that's entirely clear from the language of the bill, but I think there's ways for us to follow up on it, and I really do hope that whether you are an ardent supporter of this or not, that there's a commitment to making sure that if it turns out we learn things about ways to improve it, that we're willing to revisit it. Because I do think, to Senator Hansen's point, there's a fair question of whether or not the juice is worth the squeeze. I do think we got on a path here, in part inspired by analyses or commentary that didn't necessarily get it spot on with regard to how high to prioritize this issue. It's not to dismiss Senator Buxton's point about the fact that every little bit can add up, but it's certainly to note that I think Senator Hansen and Senator Huxtable are very spot on, that there's a downside to this. And we should be mindful of that, and we should be committed to seeing what changes, if any, we have to make going forward to make sure that people have good reason to believe that they have access to key information and they have a voice and awareness in the process. So I thank those who've entertained my effort to try and figure out what I believe to be the best decision to make on a tough situation, and for all the testimony today.
Thank you for that. I did not mean to speak to the future and cause a leak, but now we have a leak. But the power is still on. Senator Mansavinos.
If there are no other questions or comments, roll call.
Over there. Mr. Secretary, kindly call roll, if you would, on House Bill 169, 104, as amended. And when I'm done the roll call, when you're done, you're going to have Mr. President, and the lights will stay on. All right.
Senator Brown. Yes. Senator Buxton.
Yes.
Yes. Senator Gay. Yes. Senator Hansen. No. No. Senator Hawker.
Thank you.
Yes. Senator Hoffner. Yes. Senator Huxtable. No. Senator Lawson. Yes. Senator Lockman. Yes. Senator Mansavinos. Yes. Senator McBride. Yes. Senator Pardee. Yes. Senator Pettyjohn. Yes. Senator Pinkney. No. Senator Poore. Yes. Senator Richardson. Yes. Senator Sokola.
Yes.
Yes. Senator Sturgeon. Yes. Senator Townsend. Yes. Senator Walsh. Yes. Senator Wilson. Yes. Mr. President, the roll call on House Bill number 104 as amended by House Amendment number 1, 18 yes and 3 no.
Having received the required number of votes, House Bill number 104 as amended with House Amendment number 1 has passed the Senate. Senator Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. President.